Okay, here we go. It's Friday. It's 6 p.m. and god damn it, folks, you're tuned into the Cole Memo. Welcome. How's everybody doing? It's a hot day here in Chillinois, and today I'm going to be joined by someone who is as grassroots as it gets. Derek Shirley is an advocate, activist, and a convicted felon. Someone who's not only lived through prohibition, but has been directly affected by that. That's what I meant by convicted felon. We'll probably talk about that here in a moment about his felony conviction tied to the use of a plant, which is still just insane to me. But we'll get into that. He's someone who continues to fight for cannabis policy rooted in freedom, not corporate capture. Based in Maine, Derek has become a recognizable voice at policy meetings and public comment periods, public comment sessions across the state. I'd say regulators and policymakers know his name. You might know him from Beard Bros Farm, or from the dank memes that he posts online. You can find him at gettinghighwithcats.com. We'll be talking about his journey, what drives his advocacy, and why he's pushing back against things like seed to sale tracking, consumption lounges, testing. Lots to talk about, all that and more on this episode of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo is what allows this whole thing to go on.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Hey, this is Tommy Chung, and you're listening and watching The Cole Memo.
Derek, did I do okay on that intro? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I think you did phenomenal. I felt like I was John Cena coming into this ring. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Like I joked online, it's been about 3 years in the making that we finally sat down and talked, and I've been really looking forward to it. So thanks for having me, Cole.
Absolutely. Thank you for hitting me up. I was so excited when I heard from you because I watch your content, not only what you do, at the State House, for lack of better words, but I also just watch the content that you produce and across your page or on Beard Bros. And I'm just a fan, and that's why I've followed and supported you for as long as I have. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, Derek. Maybe anything I didn't mention, or just introduce yourself to my audience.
Yeah. So Derek Shirley. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I received my felony in Pennsylvania, right outside of State College, and for 4 ounces of cannabis. I was 19, didn't have any priors. So I didn't do any time. I did 3 years of probation, and obviously the felony record that's on my case or my personal file for the rest of my life. And I think I've actually heard this in Chicago once before. You guys talking about this is my charge falls under attempt to deliver an illegal substance. So it's not a cannabis charge, it's a drug charge. And I truly, I had 4 ounces, two bags. So it wasn't anything crazy. And at the time they were like, you can take this to trial. And, I said, no, I don't want to put my family through that. It's not like, in my head, it's not that big a deal. I'll wear it on the chin. And my lawyer was very clear, like, yo, if you take this felony, like your trajectory will be shooting down. Like, he pulled out the chart, statistics and everything. And at the time, I didn't even think about it. But, like they always say, that second conviction, even after probation, I mean, it's hard to get housing, hard to get a job. You can't get any help. You can't get any government assistance. Even my other favorite thing, not favorite thing, that's a sarcasm. When I first got charged, they took, because I was in a car, they took my license, and I couldn't even apply for a work permit to drive because that one particular charge falls under, we can't give you a work permit. And it's like that there really kind of, set me up for failure a little bit. But like, I'm not saying that as an excuse, but it wasn't easy. Definitely as a
Right.
19-year-old kid, with 4 ounces of pot, you're going through the feelings of, why am I a terrible drug dealer person just because I had 4 ounces of cannabis? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to make it? Again, this is not even jail, right? This is just a 19-year-old kid with a felony conviction that really messed up the trajectory of his life. And at some point, when I had to make that decision of like taking it to trial, just pleading out to, basically a top felony charge, it was like, I had faith then in the system of, I believe there's going to be change in cannabis, that like this charge is going to be laughed at someday. Um, to the point where, like, did I believe when or how? No, I had no idea, but I believed in, what was happening even then. What was that when I got the felony? 2012, right out of high school. So I'm 33, right out of high school. 2011, maybe 2012, I think. Um, it was just one of those things that after you experience it, you're like, wow, this is gonna change. This has changed. Like this, I wasn't a bad person. I
Right.
wasn't. I knew that, like, what was I doing it wasn't wrong. I'm just trying to help my, what I find out to be ADHD later, down the road. And yeah, and that's kind of how I decided then to just take the felony and just do whatever that entailed, because I truly believe there was going to be change. Like I said,
Yeah.
what form? No fucking clue. Legal. I was a kid. I don't know. But at that point, living in Pennsylvania, after I did, you know, not leaving the states without state's permission after getting off papers, um, I decided, I'm not going to wait for the state to decide to allow me to have cannabis, which was, looking now, leaving Pennsylvania was the smartest fucking decision I ever made. They still don't have fucking home grow rights, for God's sake. You know what
Right.
I mean? So it's like, holy shit, I'm 33. This happened when I was 19. They still haven't budged on that shit. So I stayed actually lived in Ohio for a little bit, because I could, at that point I was just doing delivery jobs, dishwashing jobs. It didn't really matter because the felony. You might have been off paper, you might have been off for 3 years, but you're still a drug dealer in any basic background check. So I do any job I could. Ohio was pretty, because Ohio was like kind of like the testing ground. I was ready to fly the nest per se. Wasn't too far, but far enough. And after I loved that little bit of being away from home, I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. So I but so basically I relied up to the traditional market until, 20 years of age, essentially. And then I decided to go out west, where I didn't want to go to California because I was like super just like nonchalant. For me, everyone always talks about it, what I mean? I was like, screw that. So I was like, what's going on in other states? And I was like, oh, at the time I was like, oh, Arizona has a medical program, fairly new, very expensive med card, like $450. Had to go through a lot of bullshit, limited licenses at the time. But I will say, the terps were there. That was one of the first places I learned about solid terps. Weed was dry as fuck, I'll say, but there was some good terps there. And I found it because I didn't want to live in Phoenix, because Phoenix was too big for me. And then I
Yeah.
found 2 hours north. I lived in Flagstaff. So after Flagstaff, I decided I want to move back east, and but I knew, couldn't live below the Mason-Dixon line, and that was going to be another jail sentence, or not jail.
Right.
It would be a jail sentence that time.
I was gonna say my buddy went to jail within the last couple of years past the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
no, but yeah, definitely,
they don't
and
play.
especially since you have a felony charge already, they'll use that against you. Like but so yeah, so I was like, what's I don't want to go back to Pennsylvania because we know that's not successful.
Right.
And then I was like, what's left? And then at the time it was like Mass, right? And I was like, oh, what's Mass? I was like, and I'm from Pittsburgh, so I was like, you won't catch me dead living in Boston, bro. I was like, you won't catch me at all living in Boston. Like, love all my Boston people, but you won't catch my ass living there. And then same thing with Phoenix and Flagstaff, 2 hours. I said, what's 2 hours north of Phoenix or Boston? And it was Portland, Maine. And that's really how I kind of found Maine. It wasn't really because the cannabis laws were the way they were. They just had access to medical, right? I was like, oh, they had medical since 99. That's pretty cool. You know what I mean? So fast forward, I moved to Maine. First weed experience, terrible. Hated it. I was like, what is wrong? I was so disappointed. I was like, what is what? I found out later I went to an MSO because I was so used to the dispo market in Arizona and got pretty decent product. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like I said, it was dry, but there were definitely terps there. But
And
then
really
yeah,
quick, sorry, I don't wanna derail your story because I
no,
love where
no,
this is
you're
going,
fine. I
but tell
talked for like 12
people.
minutes straight.
No,
So
I love it, that's why I brought you on, but tell people what a MSO is. Some people say it and they don't even know what it is,
it's a
so
multi-state operator.
yes.
And I'll take it one step further. When I say multi-state operator and kind of like as like a bad term, I mean multi-state operators that are actually active in policy. I don't want to say the C word, alleged corruption, and just bullshit games that we're all tired of.
Right.
Pay to play. So that's really when I talk mad about MSOs, that's really distinctions between good and bad. Everyone's like, well, some are good, and like I don't really care to talk about that. If you're in the state house talking shit, trying to fuck up policy against people's will, there's a problem, right? As a corporation
Yep.
anyway. But yes, MSO, multi-state operator. Get to Maine, tried some of that MSO weed, was devastated. I was like, what's going on, dude? Like, I can't smoke here forever. I thought this shit was fire. And then, me being me, just started chatting. I live downtown in Portland, so easy to talk to people passing through, and I finally got to meet a few friends, and my buddy grows, and I was saying, oh, cool, yippee, you know what I mean? And like it would end up being my first caregiver in Maine. Yeah, wasn't even homegrown yet. It was a caregiver. So it's like I was like, holy shit! I was like, now this is what I'm fucking talking about. I was like, this is not the weed anyone is used to in my 20, in my how many years up to that point of using cannabis. It was hands down light years ahead of anything I've tried. And that's when I really started diving in to the Maine's medical market. And when I started, we'll say 2017, there was approximately, I have to look up the exact data, but it was like 3,200 caregivers. So there's essentially 3,200 small businesses to find cannabis. And that's what like started my kind of just like, this is like it, bro. Like, this is what people like look for. Like there's no place in the country you can pick 3,600 different small businesses You know what I mean? Just doesn't exist. And later in my travel, I'll call it just later in my journey, not too many years, maybe a year after I got and met my first caregiver, you know, when I first got up here, there was very little talking amongst caregivers. Everyone was very like into their business, very, kind of just kept it like trimmers couldn't like at the time, trimmers weren't even allowed to go trim for other people. It was very kind of like frowned upon, but now that's a whole different scenario.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just so interesting. Um, and then I met this guy named Dawson Julia, who was actually the first Maine cannabis caregiver storefront, which
Okay.
opened basically essentially the whole can of worms for Maine. Meaning he found the loophole of most medical has like 5 patients, and how our laws were written, you could have like he would have like a rotating patient. So he would grow for his full 4 patients, and then this 5th patient would be a rotating patient, and that was actually the birth of our caregiver storefronts by appointment only. That's actually the one reason how they came to that appointment only, because at the time when we only had, you know, 5 allotment for caregivers, that 5th one would be so, oh, here, you're my patient for basically right now, we'll serve you. And Dawson found that out, and they got really pissed, because uh, at that time Maine only had 8 uh, 8 licenses. So all of a sudden, the MSO 8 control, Dawson Julia just blew that out of the freaking water, and they became useless. And now there's anyone can get a dispensary license here for $5,000 and unlimited canopy space. Um, so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So he's the one that got me on the set. Um, and then I should know the year. I think it was 2021. He actually got into a moped accident and suffered a major brain injury. Lucky, I mean, he died. He died. Like we thought he was dead.
Fuck.
So, God bless him. He still comes to the hearings, and I love him to death. But he's the one that put me on this whole shit, of why we're fighting. But he was definitely the founder of the caregiver storefront that we fight so often for, which honestly just got hacked recently in a sense.
What do you mean? Like it got removed or something?
No, they just put more guardrails on it, municipality approval and all
Mm,
this stuff. We used to be on. It used to be a very private thing. They put all our names on a list. It got out of control.
mm.
But yeah, so that's basically where I started, and then I was part of this Maine Cannabis Coalition with Dawson and a bunch of. I mean this in the most respectful way possible. A bunch of old heads, and I was the youngest one on that board by 20 some odd years. And after the accident, shit happened, and people really started to lean in towards adult use coming on in 2020. And I'm just like, guys, I can't, I talk too much shit. I'm not going to start backing it now. I know this is going to work out. I know this is designed just to make the state money. Like, I warned everyone about this, like, to the point where, like, people, dude, I've gotten death threats, like, not even, like, back then about this shit. Like, it was bad. Like, because people are like, shut the fuck up, you're talking too much. And I'm just like, no, I just don't want people to go invest millions of dollars to get nothing in return or paying the state. And fast forward, that's what fucking happened.
Yeah.
And so Dawson put me on, he got hurt. They voted me out / I left it happened in a public meeting in a Dunkin' Donuts in Augusta. I said, hey, hey, if I'm not wanted, I'm out. So then I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna, put a part of this on my fucking back and just like, do what I do best and not affiliate with anybody ever again. And that's why I always joke when they say, who am I affiliated with? You always say you're a GDI, goddamn independent.
Got it.
So don't get it confused with the independent party. You're a GDI, but it's one of those things where I just started going up regularly, and it was and I forgot to just sprinkle in, like around 2022, that's when I also started like screen printing.
Okay, yeah, with the shirts and stuff.
Yep, and like just learning basic stuff. I was playing around in shops before that. My buddy's shop before that. But like that's when I really started like going to a commercial shop and started working more too. So it was a weird time for me. Like, it was a very weird, but now it's like, now I just go to the state house when I can. I like to always tell people, like, I try to just specialize in the defense aspect of it. I'm not the most articulated person in the world. I'm not some law expert, but I understand the cannabis market. Like I really truly feel that I do. And it's a part of knowing it is also knowing that it's always changing and it's always fluid. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've been using this example in the last 2 podcasts I was on. I'm just going to continue the trend. Like the definition of seedlings in most states and like the height requirement, it like drives me insane. It makes me lose sleep at night because, like, Maine's, for clarification, Maine's defines seedling as 24 inches tall, 24 inches wide, non-flowering.
Wow, really?
And you can, ready, as a patient, you can have unlimited
seedlings.
Yeah,
that fit that definition. Gotcha.
Exactly. So, but if you look at almost any other states, it's always like 6 inches.
Yeah, I was gonna say in Illinois, it's 5 over 5 inches.
You can't even sex a plant with that. Like,
no.
And I made the argument that, like, okay, you maybe could like ship it off and like maybe get like this, but still, even then, it's like one of those things where it's like there's so many arbitrary laws that people were making. They have no idea why they're making them, and it's just like, and like I will never forget the time when I went to New Hampshire. I went to a New Hampshire home grow bill a few years ago, back in 23, and I ripped this apart there too because they were just trying to allow home grow, and they put like 5 inches. I went off for like my first minute about this, like, why are we obsessed with the measurement of this plant? It should be like flowering and non-flowering, right? And then it's like, but for some reason we have to talk about like seedlings, immature plants, and like somehow big mamas come into play there, and then flowering plants, and it's just like it's just arbitrary. It's just like so stupid. But that's why I love living in Maine, because we do have an active community. Like I say, I love playing defense. I love killing bills. I think killing bills is super easy. It's way easier to get people to gang up and hate something than it is to like it on the internet. Just how it is. I don't make the internet rules. That's just how the internet rules is. So it's like there's plenty of people in Maine too. Like there's a guy named Matt Bayless. There's an awesome woman named Lizzie Hayes. There's an awesome dude named Jordan River. All three put in great cannabis bills this session. You know what I mean? But I personally, this session was at an angle of just, I just want to kill these bills. I don't care about anything else, because it was one of the first times where we had a double death bill. Usually it's just like one float in there, but they definitely put 2 in there to try to dismantle under public safety our medical program, because they always say we need more guardrails and stuff. And my biggest thing is, and I say this 1,000 times, I need more data in cannabis in general to force public policy. It's like, you tell me why I need a 6-inch seedling, MFer. You know what I mean? Like, why?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Who is that policy protecting?
Regurgitating it back to us, because like that's what I'm sick of. Like there's a few this year. You want to see me freaking cringe at the state house? The state rep goes up to present a bill. I'm not an expert in this stuff. I'm not. There's plenty of people out there that know. Then why are you writing the fucking bill? Like,
right.
Red flag. If you have to tell me that, this isn't my forte. And it's just like, then shut the fuck up. Then don't be submitting bills. And that's what I'm getting like kind of mad at in Maine a little bit. Is because everyone's just not everyone, but like we're throwing too much shit at the wall. Like we need to just like say like, look, until you stop attacking us, we're doing nothing but I'm doing nothing but defense. Unless there's the little kitten. What's the little kitten name?
Her name's Saoirse, which means freedom. I figured you'd appreciate that.
Oh,
but yeah, had to show
beautiful.
you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. She was close, so I had to show you.
No, I can get right back on it. Don't you worry.
Please get back on it, because I love where you're going.
Because my thing is just like, I'm so like personally just tired in Maine of like they're just throwing like so many bills at the wall, and it's on both sides, good and bad. And I'm just like, I have no interest in passing cannabis bills unless it's in the name of like protection. Like right now, I'm almost in a like saying like, I don't even want to progress anymore. You know what I mean? I want to stay where I'm at until we say, get the F away from me. Stop forcing public mandated testing and stop trying to force metric. Until we can come to that agreement, like have no interest, definitely in Maine medical, into passing legislation, even if that might be awesome and progressive, which is kind of an asshole move. But I think there's enough great participants in Maine that I'm able to hold that position while they're able to pass some great bills still, which happened this session.
Well, and let's talk about that. This is what I was so excited to speak to you about, because like, man, I love that you are playing the defense on this, because here we are up what's creek, and I don't know why I'm censoring myself. We can say whatever the fuck we want on this show, but we have metric now. Speaking of metric, we have all of these different problems in Illinois, and
one question about that, since you said about metric. I saw online too, you guys used to have BioTrack, and that's exactly what Maine. Now, do you know how that took over? Was it an end of the contract, or was it more of a hostile takeover? End of a contract?
From what I understand, it was an end of a contract. Metric put in their bid. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Some other companies put in their bid, but I talked to somebody who said they knew a lot about Metric. And folks, if you're listening to this after the fact, I'll try to remember to put that link to that episode in the podcast. But he explained that one of Metric's strategies is that they always put in like the lowest bid, because that's the one that always wins. Again, though, I don't know much about their strategy, but I remember him saying that. And that was true in the case of Illinois. That was the cheapest bid, from what I understand.
Oh, but and you know what they do? That makes total sense, because that's why. And then this is just allegedly. No, it's not actually. That's why they can add. That's why they feel comfortable adding in their contract. Oh, we have to do what was it in Maine? A $350,000 build out. Like if we do this in adult use, or like, there's upgrades they say that cost money. So it's like some of these things that it makes sense. They come in cheaper and then they tax you along the way. So that's actually probably a small, like not hating, but like that's probably is a smart, competitive move. Because that's been our biggest thing is, like dealing with them, kicking them out. But one thing I like to joke about is that we were lucky enough that no one did listen to me, and adult use continued with Metric and everything. And now we have the Metric people, or the adult use people, saying, this metric sucks. This testing sucks. And all the medical people are just like, yeah, no shit. Like, this is what we've been trying to tell you.
And so this is what I was so, like I said, excited to talk to you about. What you've basically explained, but I want to give you like a chance to unpack more, is that Maine's medical program is still on what some in the industry space call Cannabis 1. Cannabis version 1.0, which is like how California started, where it's like caregiver supplied. It's how it sounds like Maine started, caregiver supplied. Like all of the OG states, if you will. Michigan, I believe, started caregiver supplied, and they still have, they're sort of hanging on to that framework by needles and threads because, people have been doing what you're experiencing in Maine. But I just want to like give you a chance to unpack that, because in Illinois, we're in cannabis generation 2.0, which is limited licenses, highly regulated. You fucking can barely grow your own. You have to get a fucking medical card just to grow 5 plants over 5 inches, like we talked about earlier. And it's just fucking crazy, because if you grow more than that, you get arrested. I have a episode recorded that we're gonna be releasing soon, but the guy's going through court. He had a medical card and he got arrested for growing. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? Why are these people staking out your house? So, anyways, I digress. I wanted to give you like, I feel like in short, it's if it's not broke, don't fix it. But can you explain, like, I love your stance on defense and everything. Like, you're basically trying to hold on to Cannabis 1.0, which is a great framework for patients and people that like to consume cannabis or grow
And
cannabis.
yeah. And my thing is too, is like, and a lot of people get kind of twisted sometimes. They're like, oh, you don't like testing because you want like dirty weed, or like you don't want track and trace because you want like, and it's like, no, none of that is true. I just want the data to back up any policy that is created for the public, and especially cannabis testing. Asinine, absolutely asinine. And that's why I always think that, like, could Maine have testing someday in their medical program? I mean, if the data shows for it. But it's like, when you've had a medical program since 1999 and you don't even have like any deaths, or even frankly, like, until recently we had no like poisoning or whatever. It's like it's like it's the policies is overkill, and everyone knows it. So for
Well,
me,
and
for me, it's like, why not just wait and keep Maine's medical how it is, as long as we can, until there's actual data. And like, my actual data isn't going to come, like, I think, for several years. I'm talking another decade, because like, we have states that can't even grow their own and stuff, let alone getting research,
yeah, somebody said it's nice to hear someone else's opinion that it is a waste of the customer's money to test weed, because that price gets passed on the customer. But to your
But the best
point,
part is, bro, the best part is they will tell us that it won't. And that's been my
right,
favorite thing. Like, they will tell us, like, I think I talked to Box Brown about this before. They'll tell people in, Philly that's like, oh no, the testing is, the weed is so expensive because of testing. And then they'll sit there and tell us, and here in Maine, that, oh no, it won't affect the prices. You guys are freaking lunatics. And then I sit here and I'm like, well, I just talked to about 12 different people in 12 different states, and they're all telling me something different, like the opposite of what you're saying. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's just like, again, it's like, even if it's cost, I joked the other day too, it's like, they messed up with testing. They didn't make it cool enough. If they would have made testing research and development and not public safety, everyone and their mother would be testing cannabis. Because like, even a guy like myself, it's like, why does what I say the last one? Why does everyone like GMO? Like, is it hype? Is it really because of certain cannabinoids that people like? And guess what? That sort of testing doesn't even need to be 100% accurate. It just has to be ballpark enough that we can scale in a scientific graph of understanding what the trends are. And that's what I think I, even as a consumer, am interested in testing. So that's the difference, kind of difference between me and the corporations here in Maine. I'm not trying to take your right away from testing or take away the labs, or hell, you can even use metric. I just don't want mandated testing by the state with no public policy or data to back it up. Same with the tracking. It's like, we have, we hear catalysts. We hear everyone in California saying like, metric is sending y'all packs. Like it's all getting flooded, and we're like, oh no. And Maine's like, and then literally the director of OCP, Vern Mallon, we have never heard of any bad things about metric. And it's just like, are these people stupid, corrupt, or just plain blind? And I don't care which one it is. Just be honest. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's what. And one last thing, I'll let you talk, because I know I've been ripping.
No, dude, I'm letting you go. I love it.
The other thing is too, it's like, I just want, when it comes to like tracking, it's like, I always joke too, even with state reps, even freaking, Pablo Escobar had freaking a tracking method. Anytime you scale up as a business, you are naturally, gonna track your shit. It's just natural progression of business. And then one thing I'll say, I saw a comment there about yes, corruption. I will say this though, in my experience, it is more ignorance and just stupidity than it is corruption. I think the corrupt ones are smart enough to surround themselves with dumb ones, so they can also kind of play, kind of dumb. So yes, there is corruption, but I don't think it is maybe as large as everyone thinks. I think in cannabis, if we can counter the stupidity, you can fix stupidity. You can't really fix corruption. I would rather talk to a rep that, my favorite comparison, and this might, people might feel a certain way, but this is one of my favorite things. Republicans, particularly, right? I think you might have saw it in the paper. They quoted me this in the paper. Where's our logic if we can understand if bad people can get guns? Where's the logic of bad people can't grow cannabis or consume cannabis? And right. Regardless of how you feel about guns, whatever, but repeat what they're saying back to you in cannabis world. You know what I mean? And a lot of these times, like, these people just need a smack in the face of reality, not physically, because I'm not a physically aggressive person.
Yeah, I feel like I'm probably going to fail in this, but just to use I'm going to morph another Republican talking point. The only thing that's going to stop a bad guy with some mids is a good guy with some loud.
There you go, dude. Yeah. That's fire. No, that's like fire. That? No, I do. And it goes back to same thing with, like, the Democrat scene. I find in my state house, right? There's two. Here's how it's kind of split. The parties, red and blue, and then the extremists of cannabis, of hatred on each side. You have, right. On the red, you have the former police, the DARE officers, and usually the police and the DARE officers are usually Republicans. And then on this side, you have the doctors, the nurses, and all the ones that want metric and testing. So it's like, but that middle core is what we need to focus on, right? It's like, screw what those kind of, I don't want to call them extremists, because that's kind of rude, but that extreme part of the spectrum and this part of the spectrum, if you focus on the middle, there's more, I don't want to call it stupidity, let's call it cannabis stupidity in this bracket to work with, that it cancels out the outside. And more times than not, you know what I mean? And that's how it's like, I'm really bad at kissing ass. Like, I'm super bad. Like, if I have to go up there, like, I'm, you're going to meet me running a hall. I'm running backwards. I'm talking to you. And then you get to like me. Like, no rep likes me at first. Not a single one. But it's that tenacity of keep going. And some like me and then hate me. It is what it is. It's, remember, they're politicians. They're not your friends. And you know, it's one of those things in Maine that's like, that's another fine line, is because we're so small, ready for this, with a population of 1.4 million people, that sometimes those lines are blurred for some people, and they don't want to hurt people's feelings, and they don't want to, you know, maybe be as aggressive as they want, because, you know, they don't want to look crazy or something in front of their friends. So for me, it's like, I don't have any of that. I just go up there, I speak my mind, how I'm feeling. I sometimes kind of come up with creative ways to get my point across.
Like the jumpsuit.
The jumpsuit, dude. I didn't think that was gonna slap as hard as it did, but
That was cool.
it shook them, dude. And they were more concerned that it said Janet Mills and the Republicans than anything else. Because like Janet Mills is obviously a Democrat, and you know, put Democrats and Republicans saying they agree on something on a T-shirt, and they will not be happy. And like seriously, it was nuts. I did not think, I did not think it was going to go the way it went.
Yeah,
like,
that's
the thing. You have to get their attention. You have to think outside the box. Everyone's going to be up there reading their shit. You know what I mean? They might not always agree, but they always know. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah,
I'll go back to that.
Yeah.
And then some pictures of you actually there.
So that guy there, he's famously in Maine known for saying cannabis users are bad pet owners.
What a dick.
He's a special guy. Yeah, and that's my current profile picture because I think I look great.
Yeah, you do. I like that. That's cool, man.
But yeah, it was fun, and you know, we try to let them know in creative ways to get our point across, and you know, try to stay within the bounds of, you know, decorum. But you know, decorum, what's decorum other than controlled, you know, First Amendment right? And
straight up, well said.
You know, I get it to a degree. I really do.
You don't want people fucking just
you know,
yelling and shit.
you know, like I get it. I truly do. But if someone's saying something, just saying something, no matter how they say it, they have a right to say it. But anyway, that's my opinion on decorum. But yeah, dude, it's fun up there. It's literally like a sitcom. Like last year before, we had a woman. We called it Windowgate. She was mad that like it smelled like weed in the room because there was a bunch of people in there, and she like cracked the window, and it was literally like 13 degrees outside, and everyone was like freezing by the window, and then became a whole thing. But yeah, it's fun.
I remember seeing you say, "Come, make sure you smell like weed tomorrow when you come."
Yeah, come loud in both ways. Because like, and like, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like, if you're only going to beat the stigma if they understand the stigma, you know. It's like, I joke at this point, like if they know I'm there, like this one senator in particular, every time he sees me, he goes, "Must be a cannabis day."
That's funny.
You do, because it's like if you go up there a lot, you do actually, you know, have like
make an impression.
Just a working relationship with these people. You know what I mean? Like they see your face enough, you know, they see your face 20 times in a month, or, you know, even 14, you know, or you see your email, you know, that, you know, it's one of those things where it's persistency pays off. And it's contagious, right? Because like my biggest thing is like when people get to that state house, especially when we have a big day like we did this last May, when we had four rooms of overflow people, there's just an energy that like I only can describe it as like church. Like there's like energy that like new people are like, holy shit, like we're doing something here. And it's like the other reps come out, because it only happens a few times a year, and I try to explain that to people. You know, a lot of the times it is the same dozen people that go to our state house, and you know, it's really hard to get that big number, and part of that is constantly talking about it. So, I was hyping people up to go up there in January, last August. You know what I mean? And it's like one of those things where it's like, at this point, it's not if it's coming, it's when it's coming.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like each year they give us a little bit more time. We just get stronger and stronger and come back in bigger and bigger numbers. So it's
So one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you made a brilliant point. You said, show us the data on things like lab testing, and I think the data seems to suggest exactly the opposite of what some of those people are pushing for. For example, this report from MJ Biz Daily: marijuana labs cannot govern themselves. Um, and apparently, and I've heard you point this out, lab shopping and
yeah,
inflated potency and all these things have gotten so bad. Even failure to discover banned pesticides. They've all gotten so bad that states are having to make their own labs. And I guess they're going to try to solve the problem. That remains to be seen. But my point is, um, you know, it's just so interesting how even some of these phrases are like some of these things are phrased. So, for example, I'm sure you hear this all the time, or maybe you hear something like it when they bring up testing. They're like, we should mandate third party, independent lab testing. They like throw a lot of word salad
yeah.
at you
Well, words
because, yeah, because it may, when you say third party, independent lab testing, like, I don't know about you, but to me, I always thought that meant it's a third party that's completely independent of you. You don't even fucking know who's showing up. And it's some good Samaritan. Oh, I'm going to test this weed and make sure you're not hurting anybody. Like, that's how it sounds. But then when you learn, it's like, no, there's a process of finding a lab. You find a lab that you like, you have a good working relationship with them. I'm sure other things go into it. I'm not, pricing, for example, location, there's a lot that goes into it. But my point is, and it's been something that's been reported, and we just showed that report from MJ Biz Daily, lab shopping has become this thing where it's like, in other words, I'll just keep it short and pitch it back over to you, because I think this is what you're fighting against, playing defense on. They make it sound like it's this like, safety net, but it's like, no, it's you're paying a lab for favorable results. And I'm not saying all testing is bad. As you've said, if you want to do testing, do testing. If you don't, put a label on it that says not tested. We've been consuming untested cannabis for a while. But anyways, my point is, and I'll pitch it back to you, you make a really good request when these people bring up testing, like, show me the data that shows me why we need testing. And they don't have any, but it's very easy for us as advocates on cannabis focused outlets to find the massive numbers of failures with lab testing. And like you said earlier, seed to sale.
and that is it. And I think a lot of it is they did see that, because at the end there, because they did say, they need more data to force policy. So that's what I felt really comfortable about. Do they want testing? I mean, probably, because they're sick of people bitching about it in some way, shape, or form. But like, we put in 1,000 people, we put in 1,000 pieces of written testimony against it. What are you gonna do to that? What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One thing you did say is that people can still test their weed if they want to, right?
Yep,
Like, there's
100%.
nothing
And
stopping.
a lot of people do. Like,
Yeah.
it's part of this. It's part of the, since Maine has such a low barrier, it's part of the scaling up process. Like, it's like, I think at some point you do get a certain size, maybe not even the dispensary size, maybe even when you are as a caregiver, you know, you're thinking, okay, what is selling, what's not selling, why, you start still making business decisions as a small business. It's like some don't like think like that, but like I think my buddy Pinehurst posted the other day, people are all worried about motion, but no one's worrying about margins. You know what I mean? And it's like, at the end of the day, like, profit can't be a dirty word. You have to, and I think a part of this is no one, next to no one, really does understand the value of cannabis from point seed to sale. So it's like, what's the best way to do that? It would be giving them the access to grow and possess nationwide. Because as soon as you give someone the access to actually grow, you might have a boom. But guess what? You're going to find out this fucking sucks. I will pay this guy $100, $200 a fucking ounce still.
Right.
You know what I mean? No problem. You know what I mean? Like, shit, if I don't have to touch another plant, that's great. But, that's like the value that we're missing. People don't understand value of cannabis. And the only way to really teach someone is they fucking do it, or at least have access to do it. That was my biggest thing. As soon as I like kind of moved in this house and was it 21 here, that's probably the first year I really started like taking even growing serious as a patient. You know what I mean? Because I actually had the space. So like I get like there's no space, but as soon as people understand that, until we all have these at least similar rights across the board, these policies are mean nothing. Like nothing. Like especially any policy, we're gonna stop the illicit market. You ain't gonna do that on the state level, brother. You're not gonna do that on the state level, especially if you're hearing them talking about gangs and shit. It's like,
well, I was going to ask
go.
you that. What's the backstory on this? Because I hear people talk about this shit all the time with Maine. They always say, "Oh, these illegal Chinese grow in Maine." What is this? What you're kind of talking about, where they like make shit up?
Well, no, and no. Let's, I know the main wire, Steve Robinson. He's the guy that kind of blew that all open. He's a very intelligent dude. I have a lot of respect for him as a human. I don't agree with everything he always writes, but like I always tell him, I think he has a right to say it. And he broke that there was, what was it, 271 or something like that, illegal grow houses worth $4.3 billion with a B. And that was my first red flag. I said to myself, I'm not dismissing illegals grows don't exist, because like I would be a complete asinine idiot if I thought that. But I'm also just like, do I think these grows are worth $4.3 billion? And that's the backbone to their argument. And I can't wrap my head around that. Like I joked, that's 4 times more than Taylor Swift.
Yeah, who wrote this article again?
His name's Steve Robinson.
Steve Robinson.
Yeah, the Maine Wire. Good dude. He has some different views, but I think he's the one that really cracked that open. So the answer is, does that exist? Yes, I think they exist, just like any other gang or mafia. Do I think it's fair to say Chinese grows are all gang affiliated when the own DEA and our rescheduling draft said the Chinese were the first to grow cannabis 10,000 years ago? I'm not ready to call them all gangbangers, but I think it goes back to what I originally said too. It goes back to, if we take away their clientele of giving people the right to grow and possess, and educate the people, these bad packs aren't going to have anywhere to go. Because first they were like, oh, these packs are going into Maine, and it's just like, okay, hold up, let's pump these brakes. So you're telling me an international gang who has ties from all around the country is selling packs in the most saturated market? No.
Right.
Gangs and mafias or whatever, organized crime, profit off of risk. That's the biggest profit line of any affiliate, anyone that's doing bad. So does Chinese mafia exist? Absolutely. Just as much as the Italian mafia and as much as the biker gangs. You know what I mean? But we only hear about the Chinese for some reason. And even though recently a biker gang killed someone in a bar, like it's fucked up.
Yeah.
But I'm not passing blame, but I'm not ready to. I can't sleep with the $4.3 billion valuation. That's kind of like my bottom line. It's like, just show me the data. Show me how you got that $4.3 billion valuation down to the dollar amount. Show me what you weighed. Because that was the other thing. They would bust one of these grows. They would say they got like 40 pounds. And you look at the picture, it's fucking veg plants. There's no nugs on these plants. So it's like, I guess, are they busting because what it could have been? But like, that's not 40 pounds of cannabis. Do you know what you get what I'm saying? Do you get that? You know, that's like my issue. Like, I think there should be some federal changes in how they are confiscating and, like, you know, finding this data. You know, it's like, I don't think anyone should be in jail for cannabis, to be crystal clear. But sure, if you're gonna, at least have the data to back it up.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't be like, oh, this guy has 40 pounds of pot, we're gonna put him in jail, and it's veg plant. Like, that guy could have lost his crop, and we don't even know. Like, we don't even know that could have been 40 pounds, you know? And like, I've said this before, and people have reached out to me and said, like, yeah, dude, when I got busted, they weighed my root ball and all. So it's like some of these things where it's just like the data and how the police treat cannabis still is still like way behind of what it should be. And like, that's like, I think the biggest disconnect with me and the illegal Chinese grows, alleged ones. You're right. Yeah, that's how I kind of feel about them. I think, could there be gangs in these grows? I mean, yeah. I mean, I think there could be gangs in any grows.
Right.
Even adult use. You know what I mean? Even with adult use with metric. I always compare it to, like, I hate to like be stereotypical, but it's kind of like trades. You ever try to do a trade in another state, like a garbage removal? Try to do like a garbage removal in another state and tell me how that goes for you.
What's your point? Please unpack that. Tell me what you mean.
Mafias have been controlling, what's the words? Have been
sanitation or something like that.
Controlling markets for years. Yeah. Like, if there's too many trades going on in one spot, like garbage removal, they'll be like, hey, you know, this is my route. You know, I've been doing this route for 25 years. I'd hate to see an accident happen to your route truck. You know, so I'm just asking you nicely to step away and maybe start somewhere else. And like, that's the shit that's like, you know, I get it, but it's like, also it's like, and if we're gonna really take gangs seriously, I want it every industry gutted. With organized crime, and it goes back to, I need more data. Like I said, I'm a GDI, I'm an independent, so like, I don't associate myself with anyone that isn't a gang or mafia or whatever, because like in Pittsburgh it was like different, you know what I mean? It was like, you're in fucking Chicago, you're in Illinois, I don't have to fucking tell you, you know what I mean? But for me, it's like one of those things in Maine. I think that's, you know, it's not new, but a new version that they are now, I guess, just learning. Even though, like I said, I don't know how much you probably did. You're a good guy. How much of the rescheduling draft did you read?
I remember when you actually made a podcast on it. I kind of read it and listened to your podcast. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. So it didn't go to waste. Thank you.
It didn't go to waste. Yeah. Okay. It was kind of cool. It felt like a book club.
It did. It was so boring and dry. Like, I was yawning. I was in at like 5:30 in the morning. It was terrible. But that data alone told us that the Chinese have been doing it for 10,000 years. So
Right.
my thing is like, what do then I associate with gang and culture? And not saying it's right or wrong, but like you can't say some of it could be culture, some of it could be gang. I'm not a gang expert, but again, I need that data to explain that $4.3 billion in these row houses that are like so small. I mean, like in reality, they'll say they're so big, like, oh, they're massive in this big ass farmhouse. Meanwhile, in California, they have 14 foot. You saw the recent raid with ICE out there. That
Yeah.
they took out a 750-acre farm. So it's like you said, our circle of people will always kind of be like just catching up to it. I mean, the policymakers will always just be catching up to it. We will always be in the forefront, cutting edge of like the action of it. Because these people, like I always say, some of these lawmakers are voting on these cannabis bills and don't even understand that you have to flip the plant into flower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that is scary as hell. That is scary. And like, so what's the answer to that? Mass education. And you're not going to win everyone, but like I said in back there, it's all about focusing on that middle between the extremists of the spectrum, the dare officers and the overtaxation and tracking you to death police, which is usually done. But yeah, I think
yeah. Well, I had a few questions for you.
Let me hear them.
Yeah. So, one of the things I thought was interesting, I listened to some other podcasts you did, and you mentioned that any good policy that passes in Maine is generally like 2 pages long. Like sometimes you'll see longer than that, but I thought that was a really interesting note because, like in Illinois, the last few pieces of policy that we passed, like the one that created adult use in Illinois, that was like a 600-page bill. You know?
Oh man.
Yeah. So I'd just love to hear your perspective on this because it's so interesting.
It's by design. It's
Right.
it's strategic. It's not by accident. It's not because they're an idiot. It's a method of throwing as much as I can on the wall and hope no one reads it, and what sticks. In Maine, we're lucky where, like we said, we're always trying to do something. It's always kind of a headache for lawmakers, even if it's positive. We have to keep it simple, stupid. KISS method for these bills, because like I said, if these people don't even understand the basic anatomy, not even ideology, like flipping into flower or anything about this plant, it's like, how can you expect them to look at a 600-page bill and truly be dead ass about it?
Well, and what's kind of scary about that thought is you start to realize that that's what they're doing with all these other subjects, that they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, no, right. And
that's why I've been saying cannabis is a gateway drug to politics. Like it lets you see, like, oh shit, these people don't know what the fuck they're doing. And sometimes they do. I shouldn't paint with too broad of a brush. Sometimes they do.
No, you're right, because it is a turning leaf. It's like I say, fast turning. Everyone's kind of coming to the light eventually. So it is one of those things where it's like, I try to be as nice as I can, but to an extent. It's all about like, because there's so many like strategic moves that people do, and then it goes to my favorite. It's like someone will submit a bill, and this is usually how you know there's like corporations involved. Someone will submit this like super anti-cannabis bill. I don't care, pick one, and like no like person of the public will actually come speak like for it or against it. No one cares, but for some reason there'll be a lawmaker, a police officer, a lobbyist, and that's a part of what America, like Cannabis America, has to wake up. I know you probably have been following me. What happened in Ohio, for example, they've been like my my golden goose for right now. A population with 11.7 million people, and 42 people decide to show up to their state house that day, and they didn't know what to do. And it's like that like opened my mind so big, because like I always just thought,
Had to be crowds. Like
or like 42 was like a Maine number. You know
Sure.
what I mean? 1.4 million, 42,
Mhm.
But the fact it only took that with that, man, that tells me that just like the people just aren't doing our job. Definitely in cannabis. And you said how it's like a gateway to policy, and I agree with you. And I'll take it a little bit step further in it's because cannabis is such still like in reality in the infancy of industry, we're able to see how other industries are fucked because we're watching cannabis develop.
Can I give
So
a brief example? Like people
please,
talking about people pushing testing. Meanwhile, we don't know what the fuck's on our food supply.
always.
Like,
And
why don't we figure that out?
my other favorite thing is the practice of using crazy pesticides that we don't know about. Like people just think that is new to cannabis. And you
Right.
know what that's from? You know what that practice is actually from? And this is going
No.
to blow people's mind. Organic farming. Because they only test for certain pesticides, and that's why like organic is kind of a trash label now, right? Or used very loosely, because a lot of the times, I don't say a lot of times, I have to find better statistics to back up my data that I'm about to present. But there is proof that like these, organic farms of fruits and vegetables are still using pesticides that they're not testing for, just like cannabis. So it's like that like whole thing of like, oh my God, like this is such a new crazy thing. It's like not true at all. Like almost nothing new in agriculture. Like there can be new technology and maybe like some new maybe scientific methods, perhaps. But at the end of the day, it's like cannabis like thinks it's like legal cannabis thinks it's like new to the game of like
Right.
of cheating the system of quality. And it's just like you just said, look at our foods. It's like it's terrible. And we all
Yeah.
should be grown. I saw a comment earlier too. It's like we should be growing our own foods.
Yeah.
One of our biggest cannabis activists, Senator Hickman, he actually wrote what's called the Maine Right to Food Act. So we actually have a constitutional right to grow our own food in Maine. Basically, everyone can do whatever essentially the heck they want within some limitations. But we got clarified. We tried to see if cannabis could fall under that.
I was about to ask.
It did not pass.
That's
We tried, but it makes still no sense by definition. But they said nope. But
yeah, you could literally put cannabis in food. It's like, what are you talking about?
well, no, it was just because how they defined it. It was like
Right, I get
anything.
it.
Well, I remember the definition was something like any product that brings nutrition, wellness, and something else. Two very vague terms that we were arguing that like, well, this could absolutely mean cannabis. And hold on to your seats. I'm going to leak a secret. You know, one thing they left out?
What's that?
I don't think psilocybin mushrooms got off that list.
Nice.
All I will say is this, man. After that right of food pass bill went on, I saw mushrooms on every freaking corner here. I swear to God.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, like in a store or something. Not even like on the corner. Like maybe a corner store. You know what I mean? Like
Somebody just commented and said they saw you on Let's Be Buds the other night.
I was on Let's Be Buds. Thank
That's
you
cool.
for tuning into both. Yeah, I did a little story over in Michigan and talking about the similar stuff.
Dude, that mushroom thing though, that is crazy.
Again, don't
And
hold me to that. I'm not saying it's legal, but like
sure, no,
I'm not saying where it makes sense. You can't. It doesn't say you can't.
yeah,
And it's a mushroom. It's not like cannabis. It's not like a gray area. You know, is it a
yeah.
food thing? A mushroom is a food. So
One brilliant point you made is that some of these people in cannabis, when you learn some of these things, they think it's like a new piece of technology. And I'm just going to make sure you're sitting down here because I'm sure you're going to have some things to say about this. But like remediation, even is from other,
oh yeah.
it's applied in other industries like that. Some guy was probably sitting here and they're like, well, I work in this industry, the peanut industry. I think peanuts actually have to be or can be remediated or often are. Look that up, folks. Make sure my data is right there. But my point is, there was probably somebody in the room at one point that was like, we do that in peanuts. Like, why don't we do that in cannabis? And then thus remediation began,
Yeah, I actually did an article off of Beard Bros of someone, Matt Bayless, another like kind of advocate. He was saying how pasteurization, remediation is pasteurization 2.0, and you know, again, that's another topic of like I don't even want to take away people's remediation machines. They can have them. But what I do want you to do is make sure your remediation is labeled.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I want. I don't think it's too much. And they tried. Mr. Matt Bayless did try to pass that, but people like was it Jarco particularly? There's a company he spoke out against it because he quote was worried about the stigma.
And yes, and I want to add this to you. I'm curious what your response would be to this. I've seen two companies testify against labeling remediation. Maybe one of them has been on this show in the past. But they said they were worried about people being confused.
And it's just like I think I said this on Let's Be Buds. Or maybe I said it on the Don't Forget the Crust. I forget. Most people don't give a shit, So it's like I don't think there's even a stigma there to begin with. Um, it's just a common practice of if you do something, you do it. Kind of like, you know, when you pasteurize something, it says it's pasteurized. If it's not pasteurized, like apple cider, for example, it warns you that it's not pasteurized. And they say, they don't. The other thing they say they don't do it in our foods. Well, it's like, well, maybe they should, and it goes back to that of like we don't even know what we're eating. And again, we even haven't touched on the fact that, and I wrote an article about this in the local paper here about, the combustion damage of combustible smoke. It's like you're
Right.
testing something, okay? It gets on your hands. Did you wash your hands before you touch that? So right there, boom, could be contaminated. Okay, let's say your hands are clean. Put it in. Some people use their fingers. Let's say next method grinder. What kind of grinder are you using? Using the $20 grinder? Using a cheap grinder? All right, there you go. Some more contamination in there. All right, let's
Yeah.
just
Maybe
say
even some metal shavings.
exactly. Maybe
Yeah.
some light metals instead of heavy metals. Like, and then let's go to all right. Let's say you didn't use a grinder. You have clean hands. You picked up your weed part by your hands. But what would you put it on? You put it on a tray you haven't washed? Did you put it on wood? Did you put it on what did you put it on? Okay. So then it goes back to okay, now I'm gonna smoke it. Okay. Everything's clean up to that point, super sterile. So now I'm going into my bong. Pack, pack, pack. Okay. You think that is safe I don't know if you can use it. You think that's safe to me to smoke right now? It's kind of dirty. It's kind of dirty, right? Like I don't know how much you can see, but it's kind of dirty. But like no, like I clean my shit before this show, but like I'm not gonna stop and clean every time it's slightly dirty. You know what I mean? So again, okay, So even up to that point, we haven't even lit the goddamn bong yet. We haven't even touched the bong yet, and we're already went through how much possible contamination. So here we go. We're lighting the bong. We're gonna now light the bong.
Here we go, folks. Light your bongs as well.
And then you hit it with combustible smoke. And now you're telling me after all that, just because it's tested, it's now clean.
Right.
And it's safe to consume in my lungs. And everything's going to be A-okay to me, A-okay for me in 10 years from now. And you can guarantee that because your state government is telling you so. And that's kind of like my point of all of this. I think that rant right there has summed up how I feel about tested flower so good. Because, like, there's so many other contaminating factors that go into that. Aspergillus, for example. I could have aspergillus in my goddamn house, even if it came home clean, especially in Maine in these old moldy houses. Like,
or the Office of Cannabis Policy in Maine.
Office of the Cannabis Policy needed to track down everyone else's mold, but couldn't handle their own office mold. Had to get a Freedom of Information Act for that one.
I'm just, dude, we'll try to give people a little bit of context. So your Office of Cannabis Policy was shut down because of a mold infection following.
Oh, you helped me with that. I forgot. I quoted you.
Well, right. Yeah.
You helped me. Oh,
and
my God,
you remember I sent a video of
John
your
Hudak
leader,
coughing.
and he's like coughing, and he's like,
dude,
I don't know what's going on.
Dude, the cough heard around the world. Because, like, that's right. Because, like, this all started because I saw him cough, and then you saw him cough out in Illinois.
I like you were saying,
like, dude, he's super sick.
Yeah, you were saying that he was coughing, and I was in a Zoom with him, and he was a speaker, and he's just like hacking up a lung, and so I like thought of you, and I was like, dude, this guy, I didn't know like the whole backstory behind it, but I was like, this guy's like sick. He seems sick.
I will say, messaging me, like telling me, yo, brother's sick still. Like, you're the one that you're like kind of like I gotta keep digging, man. Like, this shit ain't right. Like, ain't nobody sick in the middle of summer. Like, goddamn. And yeah, dude. And they still haven't really came clean with that. They still haven't even like, it's nothing to them. But like the thing is, it's the principle of it. It's like you can blast Maine Medical for how many, that's my favorite thing about this. They talk shit about Maine Medical for like, since that dude been in office, they've been on like a campaign. Our numbers of patients increase still. And what was the other statistic? Oh, and medical is still outperforming adult use. Even after our media is like, this weed is so dirty. Don't smoke it. Everyone's like, wait, you say they have good? You're just like, what? And like, more people got their card. And on top of that, in our budget this year, our adult use tax went up to 14%, 10 to 14%. So now everyone else is like, well, might as well get a fucking med card at this point. So it's they're so mad. I can't even imagine how much time, media effort, media blitzing, like they get on and do to like shit talk our program, and then like it still increases and does better. It just shows that just like, the product will speak for itself, and it's nothing to do bad with our adult use. Maine fucked up, and they voted it in 2016. Didn't even have the first sale until October of 2020. Almost took 4 years to write the rules, and it was written by Friedman and Kioski, a firm. And then we found out, or I should say I found out, that our current director used to work for them and was a co-founder of that same firm that wrote our current adult use laws.
And I think I sent you a clip from Illinois where apparently he consulted in our laws too. So
yeah.
I'm not wrong.
No, like it's one of those things where like that's what they did. They went around, they set up laws and to fit molds of 4 metric and large entities. And it's like doesn't take, I have mixed feelings about California because like I feel like they like words you said, they were like the first guinea pigs of
Right.
kind of like Cannabis 2.0. And they're like the first to like are unfortunately gonna be the first to reap the damage. Um, but that's why it's like here in Maine, they are trying to kind of like backstep the adult use market. But again, it's like all these states are always watching other states. So that's why it's more important. That's why I love talking to people from all over. That's why you see me talking to people in Michigan, uh, we all have to get on our state, reps cases because we want them to know, like, oh no, like who did I talk to? I had forget his real name. Is it Jack? Yeah, my buddy Jack in Michigan, and he was telling a rep about metric and what was going on in Maine. That rep wanted to reach out to Maine reps and like conversate about it. So I know the connections are happening and being built, and like I know people want to talk. So it's like one of those things that it's so important that we're just building these relationships with that middle margin of cannabis stupid people
Yeah.
that we're bringing them to the light because it's like, hey, look, this guy's an idiot. This guy's an idiot. Like, come on, it's just pot. Like, we're just smoking weed here. Like, more times than not, people are using cannabis for medical elements, even if it's for buying recreationally. That's also in the DEA's rescheduling draft. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like cannabis is medicine first. Anything that isn't is it's not going to work. It's just simply not going to work as a business model. Like, are you going to make money for your state and like maybe do good if you have 20 stores, 40 stores, whatever? I don't know. I'm just making up numbers at my ass. Yeah, probably. But like, if you're just trying to grow small, like we do in Maine, like it's not feasible. I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've had a good time with you today. I've got a little bit more if you've got just a little bit more
I
time.
do have
Cool.
time. I had something happen. I had something planned after this, but during the show they texted me that they canceled.
Oh,
So
sweet.
it was just actually helping a friend move a couch. So it
Oh,
was it's
cool.
nothing crazy. So yeah, I definitely have a few more minutes.
Sweet. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on, and maybe sometime I would love to even do like a boots on the ground podcast. I can make this so that you can call from your phone or whatever. I don't know. I would love to continue to stay in the loop on what's going on in Maine, and it's easy to do
Yeah.
that with your page. So I'll plug it again, folks. At Getting High with Cats on most social media, gettinghighwithcats.com to check out the website. Which you can probably get redirected to the social media. So if you want to stay in the loop, I would say follow Derek on social media. But again, I'd love to have you back on so that my listener base can stay in the loop. And like you said, all in that spirit of kind of staying together, building those connections within states. People are hearing you say a lot of familiar things, and hopefully we can learn lessons from you and undo some of the things that have been done in here and in Illinois and other states, and hopefully other states that are considering going online can learn lessons from you as well. So one of the things that I really love that you say is at a bare minimum, we should just have the right to use and cultivate. Or you said actually cultivate and possess, but I just assume you mean use, obviously,
Yeah.
right? Feels like that goes without saying.
Right.
And I get flack for saying that. And I get, some people they like to be able to go to a store, and I'm not against that necessarily. Again, though, I think like what you've said, at a bare minimum, we should just have the right to cultivate and possess.
Right. I nationwide across the board, no questions asked, because I always make it clear with an asterisk. That does not include markets. If the state doesn't want to market,
Yeah,
then that's on them.
that's okay. Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I think everyone should at least have the right to possess. Um, and I think people get this idea of like why you get slack is because you know oh, the weed's going to be bad. It's going to be moldy. They're going to flood the market. Oh, what other excuse? They don't know what they're doing. Fires. Did I miss anything?
This is you basically just said it, but I was gonna say the grow houses will blow up. You remember that
Yeah, yeah.
episode from South Park or whatever where they made fun of MedMen, I think, or
No,
something like
right.
that?
No, exactly. Um, mm, um, Wait, what did I just say? I lost my train of thought.
You were saying they come up with all the different reasons as to why home grow can't happen, like fires and
Oh, yes. And this is kind of the same way I feel with like because they always say it's bad. So the illegal Chinese grows weed. You need the bad to understand the good,
right.
right? Like that's the circle of this. That's the circle of the good. Should you smoke the bad? Should you use the bad? No. But you still need the bad to elevate the good to understand the value of that grade. And it goes back to like people just are assuming these people are going to get plants and just dump out like a pound of light, 2 pounds of light, like even using the sun. It's like, my God, you'll be happy if you get 2 ounces off your first time. And it's just like one of those things where people, again, don't know how to grow. Again, I want to be crystal clear when I say that, though. I'm like a novice grower, dude. Like I am not like some master grower. I use fucking a dude called Farmer Joe's Organic Soil. He makes it here in Maine and he sells all over, but he makes it here in Maine. I literally know where a shop is. All I gotta do is add water to my shit and fucking trim it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all I do. There's no herbs and spices to my shit. Most recently, my buddy Pinehurst, Jake, he did give me some microbes to throw in my shit that he makes. So he definitely like gave me shit to feed my soil and stuff. So I definitely yeah, even then, even in my like I always joke like my midsy of mids, or what do I call it? My Ricky from Trailer Park, or my Ricky style of growing. It's like even then, dude, I'm not like crushing it. I can make it like if I probably grow enough to get me through the winter. You know what I mean? But that's what people don't understand is like we need the bad right now more than ever to understand the good. Because if you're just like assuming you're knocking out the bad, or it's not even fair to knock out the bad, they can't even get licenses. And that goes back to why that's why it goes back to why not even goes back to, but kind of opening a small can of worms. But that's why hemp market's thriving the way it thrives. Do I think a majority of the hemp market is probably mids bad? Yeah. Do I think a majority of almost any market is pretty mids or bad? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could there be some really fire and good people doing good hemp stuff? Not to be on Ohio again, but same thing, limited licenses. So these limited licenses, when people don't have an outlet, they're gonna gravitate towards something else, and like,
Bingo.
and that's it, and that's it.
That's all
and
it is.
and there's like guys not to even talk shit on them because these we have good conversations, but I sometimes don't think like guys like Poetry of Plants like always gets that aspect of it.
Right.
They just see like their position, which I'm not dismissing anything he says, to be crystal clear on that. Like his position and his point of view could be 100% accurate, but from like my point of view, it's like some of these people are using the hemp because the way the policy is writ up, the cannabis is so poor that they have no other option but to resort to the hemp. And they feel safe because it's legal, regardless of if the COAs are fake or not. It doesn't matter. And that's also, I believe, the federal government's fault for dragging their feet, right? It's like, what else do you want from these people?
Straight up. I mean, like the only reason hemp is popular, like you say, they call it red state weed for a reason, but then also like it's
Is
popular.
that what they call it? I actually never heard that term.
Yeah.
Red
They'll
state
call it
weed.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right, I like that.
Which it works, right? But it also is popular in markets like Illinois where the licenses are so goddamn limited People are just looking for other options. And I would say it's not even, I think this is an important distinction or point to make. It's not only the consumers that are floating towards hemp because of the horrible limited license system and the high prices that come with it. It is also the business people that could not get a limited license. And so they're saying, fuck it, I'm going hemp. And I'm
Yeah.
going to sell weed that way because I can't fucking sell it any other way. Otherwise, I get arrested still in the
Right.
state of Illinois.
Or I need
Yeah.
$250,000 to run a license.
Bingo.
You
That
know,
yeah. Yeah,
so
exactly.
you get yelled at for being in the traditional market. You get yelled at for being in the hemp market.
Mhm.
So it's like what the so nothing for you, just
Right.
nothing, just zilch, nothing.
Sit down.
So that's like where I think there's a lot of misconception and misunderstanding in the hemp market. Um, I think it is a lifeline to a lot of people. Um, 'Cause I went through an evolution of feelings on the hemp market. I used to, if you asked me this even in 2022 or 21, I probably wouldn't say the same thing I do today. Um, but after listening to other states with such limited markets, and dude, like you said, some of that dude is crazy. I met a guy in South Carolina that came up to Maine one time to chat with me. And I mean, just a chat because he saw me online and wanted to like meet me and shit. And we were talking, and
That's cool.
honestly, yeah. And then, but dude, it was crazy what he was telling me about some of these like hemp stores down there, these CBD stores down there, and what they do. It's insane. And he was a little bit too high on his horse, and he's oh, you won't think I have the best shit. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I said, brother, I don't know where you think you're standing right now, but um, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, I will tell you if I think it's fire. And like, he gives me like this nasty smell. I'm like, this is like trash. And I like opened it, and I'm just like, so like, I do get it. But when I'm talking to a guy like that, you know what his like competitor is?
What's that?
Still brickweed.
So it's
Still.
still better, kind of.
So it is 100% better. To him, that is the fucking gold.
Yeah.
Like that shit is gold. And I can understand why he thinks that now. I sometimes go back and wish I didn't roast him as hard as I did. Just to like understand. But now, like I look back, like that is a prime example of the survival of the chain. Like these people are just like, I'm just gonna open hemp. Like it is better than what's on the street. And but then like that's
And there are
understand.
even some that are just like, you know, speaking of something you spoke about earlier, like one of those companies that was alleged to be backdooring products the most, I'm pretty sure it was Glass House. They were alleged, right, in California
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
backdooring. They announced they're opening up like the biggest THCA flower thing, and they're saying they're gonna grow all their weed the same, but they're gonna legally ship it as hemp. And to your point, like that shit's gonna take off. And I only brought it up because, like you said, there is definitely some fucking trash. Like I went to my local smoke shop and I was like, "Can I see some of the THCA flower?" And I was like, "I wouldn't smoke that."
yeah,
But they did have some options where I was like, "Bro, this is fire.
yeah.
Like this
No,
smells
for
good."
sure.
You
So
know?
but like, and then it goes to that market of like there's an ask for every seat. It goes back to the howling we
Yeah,
grade in quality, how we're grading cannabis and quality scale. And can there be commercial that's like fire? I don't know what the threshold is yet. Like
sure. Right.
I I will say this with confidence. I have seen several what I consider larger grows dump out some pretty legitimate fire. But if something goes wrong in any of those rooms, it's never the same again.
Right.
Ever. Ever. And but the opposite, like I've been with some of these caregivers now since I've been here, and straight up consistency across the board, no matter what strain they switch to, or some, abandoned all strains, or some still have the same strain that I've had since I first moved here. You know what I mean? So it's really understanding like the value, because you go into grading, right? It's kind of like a freaking PSA card. I don't know if you're into cards. I'm not really, but that's kind of how it's like PSA grading cards. And then on top of that, it's like how many of that circular, card is in circulation, right? It's like if everyone has if everyone has a GMO, your GMO better be spectacular. Or what's the other one in Maine? If everyone has a Mac, you better, have that. But because everyone has Mac, for example, that degrades the value of that. Period. No matter how good or bad, that just automatically lumps you in a criteria. But sure, then from there, could you have the worst Mac to the greatest Mac? Yes. So it's kind of like a funnel system in a sense,
Yeah.
Go ahead. I talked a lot.
No, it's okay. I was just somebody asked what THCA flower brands do I prefer? I don't have any I can recommend. I've just seen some that look good, and somebody asked, except it looks like California is clamping down on hemp while Texas is not. Curious what that'll mean. From what I understand, hemp is like banned retail in California, but because the farm bill is federal, you can still cultivate hemp and export it because it's federally legal. You just can't sell it on shelves in California. That's their regulations. So, and then Texas is just
wait.
Texas.
Are you sure? Is that right?
Yeah, that's why.
So they can't sell on their shelves.
Technically, no, but they still do because they're not.
Dude, you know what that means?
What's that?
Dude, whoever put that bill in was a genius.
Yeah, well, that would be
because that means all that now is going to be exported.
Correct. Yeah.
Why would they? Wow, someone's really smart.
That someone that you might be referring to is Gavin Newsom. He did it as a public declaration of emergency or something.
No, right. He's doing that in the name of protection, but like the puppet master behind it, whoever it is, they did that so they could export more.
Yeah, probably.
No, I'm telling you, like that is designed like that. You don't do that. Like, why? What other product do you know in the history of America that you can't sell in your own state, that you grow in your own state?
That's a good point.
You can't. There is none. So the fact that you can still produce it, you're saying, but not just sell it. So they're just trying to flood probably the Mason-Dixon line.
Hell yeah, red state weed.
Well, oh man, I can't wait till them boys turn on them lights down there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure because it's a big company that, like I said, has faced some allegations that they were.
Oh no, I just mean like some of these southern states, because they have the some good climate for it. You know what I mean? And like I think they have potential to be a real powerhouse, some of these southern states, if they got their act together.
Yeah. Well, just because we're on the hemp topic, I will round this out. I want to show you a video that I think is crazy, and I just wonder what you think of this as an advocate. It's a short 24-second video. But then I got one more Maine related question, and I actually have a Box Brown comic that I think we can use to close out the show, which seems fitting since we mentioned him. So here's this clip, and I'm just curious what you think. I'll try to narrate over it while I show it. So what you're seeing is cops taking out a bunch of THCA flower or hemp at a smoke shop. I actually had this guy on my podcast, and so they're taking it out, a bunch of bags of weed. And now what you're seeing is him returning the cash and them bringing all this weed back into the store. And I just think that, edibles and stuff like that, they're bringing it back into the store. And I just think that, could you hear me that whole time the video?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure my mic was on.
Yeah.
I just think that if in any other time period you looked back at this, or like, let's even go back to just like with the 80s and 90s with Cheech and Chong, right? If you said like, look, you can have a brownie with THC in it, but you just have to call it hemp, they'd be like, all right, I just think that that's an interesting thing about
Yeah,
hemp that, you know, you
no,
check, you know?
yeah, no, I think it's um this is one thing I do think why they do that is that Poetry of Plants said this too. I don't know if he said it online, but no, I think he did. It was in the story. Um, because that is designed to uh, get it into one market. Like, I think they do want um, everyone to be in the hemp market because that way it's easier to control, and then they can do some more regulations. And I don't know if you remember or saw, but Cureleaf did the same thing. Cureleaf has a hemp store now in Florida. Um,
Yep. And they're gonna open one up in Chicago apparently too, which is kind
oh,
of
there you
crazy.
go. So it's like obviously they're usually the first ones to get the
And
ear.
GTI already did actually. They opened up a hemp dispensary in Chicago. Yeah.
So if the big boys are already moving, that tells you something.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you something's moving. But my defense and what I like when I was talking to Nelson was, um, I think there's still, like I said earlier, there's still time for people to fight in their states to make sure it doesn't go, all centralized to hemp. You know what I mean? Um, but I think if they don't step in, it's everyone's going to go to hemp eventually. But as
Yeah.
soon as they do that, though, it's a trap. They're gonna
Right.
they can because right now they open the can of worms. They really open 2 can of worms. Some cases 3. Right? They have the adult use can of worms, the medical can of worms, and the hemp can of worms. So now they're trying to make sure that they only can deal with 1 can of worms.
Right. Yeah,
So
and
that's
this
how
is
I kind of feel.
yeah, this is the way I look at hemp. I like pulling up the actual farm bill because it's kind of crazy to see this. So this is the 2018 farm bill. And if you
Yeah.
scroll all the way to the bottom, like literally the last page, it says conforming changes to the Controlled Substances Act. And if you read here, it says THC is Schedule 1 as set forth in the Controlled Substances Act, except for THC and hemp, which is just hilarious. So in other words, they
Right.
descheduled THC, but they made this arbitrary definition called hemp.
And you know why? It goes back to people not knowing what the fuck they're doing.
Exactly. They didn't know what they were doing. It's clear. Sometimes people will say this is a loophole. It's like, no, but I could see if you called it a loophole if it was like unclear, but that I just showed you is very clear. It says
Right.
THC, is Schedule 1 except for hemp. And if you look at the definition of hemp, it's if, the cannabis in the product. Actually, speaking of Box Brown, he has a pretty good graphic on this that I'll put on screen right now. This is when I really got kind of entranced with this idea, because this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you showed Cheech and Chong this back in the day, this is boxbrown.com, folks, if you want to see who we're talking about. He's a great comic artist. He basically shows this gummy that, a portion of it is THC, but most of it is CBD, gelatin, and sugar and cornstarch. And therefore it is, and I'm going to say in air quotes, hemp, you know, and
Yeah.
then you can possess as much as you want. It's descheduled. You can bring it across state lines. It's legal to possess, and it's just funny because what we need to do is we need to remove that arbitrary 0.3% threshold and just deschedule the entire plant. None of
Right.
this hemp and marijuana stuff.
Right.
But anyways, that's why I'm super intrigued with it. Because again, I think if you would have showed this to somebody back in the day, like, wait, you're telling me I could have this soda that's in front of me, it's got 50 milligrams in it. You're telling me that I could
Yeah.
have this shipped to my door? This is
Right.
THC. It's not like Delta 8 or anything like this. And this company is very
Yeah.
particular about it. People would be like, holy shit, you guys are living in the future.
Oh, wait. Since you're showing yours, I'll show mine.
Yes, please do.
I'm
curious.
saving it, so I'm not gonna crack it open. I love these suckers. This is Tastefully Baked. They're here in Maine.
Okay.
And this is 100 milligrams of THC. But what's special about their stuff, and which I find, is it's nanoemulsified.
Yes.
So nano-emulsified is the shit for like all the drinks. If it's not, I mean, I'm not saying if it's not nano-emulsified, it's not good, but like I personally
It hits
prefer.
quick, right?
Yep, super quick. Yeah, and it's not like other. Um, I don't know. I think it always hits me a little bit different. Kind of like how hemp, obviously, or not hemp, but I'm blanking. How dabs and flour have like kind
Sure.
of a different high. That's kind of how I
That makes
kind
sense
of,
though.
yeah, kind of it feels. It's quicker. It's a little bit more. I don't know. I don't want to say it's more of a drunk high because that like maybe because I think I'm placebo myself because I'm drinking it.
Drinking, right.
But it is a different high for sure.
Yeah. Well, one of the other questions, and then we can close out with the
Yeah.
Box Brown comment that I had. Does Maine have a possession limit with cannabis? I always just think that's whack. To extend the thought you said
Uh,
earlier, really
yeah,
quick, to
it's
extend the thought you said earlier, like we should all have the right to use, cultivate, and possess. What I like to say on the show is as much as we want, need, or please. Like the whole concept of possession limits or grow limits is crazy. But yeah, do you guys have possession limits and grow limits and stuff like that in Maine?
I think the personal. I forget what the rec numbers are. Um, but as a patient, you can have up to 8 pounds. So it's
That's
one of
pretty
those
good.
things where it's I can't really complain about it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
I never come close to that. Um, they try to mess with it sometimes. They try to change it on us occasionally. But we always talk about how like we do a lot of patients can still not patients can take their shit to be extracted.
Oh, interesting. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, because I didn't even tell you our plant counts we can have. I know you have one more question, but plant counts are so my wife and I wanted if you had a family of two,
That
21
was my
plus.
next question, by the way,
All
plant
right,
count.
cool. 21 plus with a pet med card, you can have up to 24 flowering plants, and they do have to be tagged and separated from your medical and your adult use. Uh, don't ask. And then you can have, I think it's 12 immature plants and then unlimited seedlings. So you could have a nice setup even as a patient. Um, but I personally never even come close to that. Like I'm usually just running out most 8 plants in the summertime. Um, but more times than not, it's pretty awesome that we have pretty chill laws when it comes to that too. Probably some of the best in the country, but they're just really weirded word like I said, you have to have like you have to have make sure your adult use are like labeled with your driver's license number or something or I
That's weird.
yeah, it's kind of bizarre. But patience ones, and you can only technically have like 2 locations to grow. And it's like, how do you want me to grow like 24 flowering plants? So 12 tents. So I can have like 12, like two 12 plant flowering tents essentially. But the one can be medical and one can be for adult use.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good way to put a bow on this conversation. Let's look at a little Box Brown comic because it kind of touched on a lot of themes we share today. So I'll zoom in. This is actually from when Box came on my old podcast. He said, I recently appeared on the Chillinois podcast, which focuses on Illinois cannabis. I love talking weed, but I'm always disheartened hearing that Illinois, who legalized in 2019, is still dealing with the same problems we have in PA. It's the same players using the same methods with the same goal, limiting competition for the legal cannabis dollar. Consumers whose money is driving the legalization movement are not asking for much. Stop arresting us. Stop arresting those who provide us with cannabis. Let us have a large, inclusive market that is competitive and easy to access. And this is brilliant. We want to vote with our dollars, but cannot legally do it until everyone is on the ballot. I love that.
I love that. I love Brian.
Yeah, he's great. And I had a great time with you tonight. Did you have fun?
I had a blast, dude. Like I said, it was like 3 or 4 years in the making. So I wanted to make sure I gave you all, every second of my time I could.
I appreciate it, and I'd love to chat with you again.
Yeah.
I'll be watching you folks again. Follow Derek at Getting High with Cats. You can also go to gettinghighwithcats.com. And before we go, you want to just give you the final word? You got anything else you want the people to know before we leave them tonight?
You know, don't blame the corporations until you get your ass off the couch yourself.
Hell yeah.
That's kind of what it is. Or make sure you're doing your part. It might not physically be getting up and going, but make sure you're doing your part locally, state level, and that's really it.
Hell yeah. Well, again, thank you for taking the time and spending all the time with me.
No problem.
I appreciate that you were one of that you reached out to me to do this. And
Yeah.
again, I'll be watching and supporting from afar. So,
All right, no problem. See you later, buddy. Thanks
Yep.
for having me.
Yep. Take care.
You too.
All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed that show, that conversation. I certainly did. Thank you, everybody, for commenting and participating in the show. I always appreciate that. If you missed the live stream and want to check it out, go to colememo.com/YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I try to post before I go live. Again, I hope you found value in this episode. And again, please give Derek a follow on social media. Great person to follow, always entertaining, got some awesome memes, and he's just doing awesome work. He takes the time and goes out and fights for what he believes in. And as they always say, you got to fight for your right to party. So, folks, a lot of the issues I care about, I tried to outline in my mini documentary, which you can stream now at colememo.com/minidoc. I'm about to show you a peek of what that looks like. It's free to stream, and it's only an hour, and it kind of boils down what I think are the biggest problems in Illinois cannabis policy. And those problems just so happen to be pretty much shared across all of the states that are legalizing cannabis right now. So what we're going through isn't necessarily unique. And again, if you want a rough idea of what my mini documentary looks like, here is a peek, folks. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Beginning January 1st, 2020, the recreational use of cannabis will be legal in the state of Illinois.
Available to stream now, my mini doc dives into the history of Illinois legalization, starting with
January 1st. What should we expect? The biggest thing that we need people to understand is that January 1, in terms of the criminal justice system here in this state, is the end of prohibition.
See how Illinois missed its chance at real cannabis reform with key failures, including the fact that
the program includes regulation on possession limits.
So people can still be arrested for a possession.
And I want to highlight that in its first year of legalized recreational marijuana in the state of Illinois, they arrested 3 times as many black people for possession than any other race.
We've run into so much cannabis, we've run out of places to put it.
I have represented people and taken their cases through the court system who got charged with more serious crimes only because the police said that they smelled cannabis. And not because the police said you have illegal cannabis, or not because you have too much cannabis, or not because you're high on cannabis, but because I can smell it and that's it.
Attorney goes, he understands that he can't be smoking and his cannabis flower shouldn't be open. And I was like, I'd like to say for the record that I was not smoking and my flower was not open.
So that's where we're at right now in Illinois.
Yeah.
And I hope it changes.
Start watching now at colememo.com/minidoc.